The moment my sister leaned in and said, "Waste good food on you, that's cute," the entire ballroom seemed to freeze. Her dress caught every spotlight. My table didn't even get water or a place card, just a reminder of exactly where I ranked in this family. My parents didn't defend me. My dad even muttered that maybe I should go. So I did. I walked out past the whispers, the smirks, carrying something they never saw. Not anger, not shame. Before I tell you how everything collapsed around them, tell me, where are you listening from? And as for that moment, they had no idea what they'd just lost. I grew up in a quiet neighborhood outside Charleston, the kind with trimmed lawns, polite smiles, and families who looked perfect from the sidewalk. Ours looked perfect too, at least in pictures. In every framed photo lining our hallway, Brooke stood in the center, glowing confident, dressed like the sun was built just to hit her right. And me, I was always on the edge of the frame, a little too quiet, a little too observant, a little too wrong. My mother, Linda, never said she favored Brooke. She didn't have to. It was in the way her voice changed lighter, warmer whenever Brooke walked into the room. It was in the way she'd sigh at me like I was the static interrupting her favorite song. And my father, Charles, well, he measured human worth in resumes and salaries, and my work-from-home consulting didn't fit the image he wanted to brag about. You need a real job, he'd say, not even looking up from the news. But the truth was, I had one, just not one, he understood. My intuition has always been sharp. Too sharp if you ask my parents. When I was 11, I warned my mother that Dad's new business friend made my stomach twist. There was something off about him, his forced smile, his jittery hands, the strange energy around him I couldn't shake. Mom brushed me off, told me I was imagining things again. 2 months later, that same man drained one of Dad's accounts and nearly cost us the house. No apology, just silence. The kind that tells you the truth doesn't matter when it's coming from the wrong child. Middle school was the first time someone listened. I told a teacher something wasn't right about a substitute coach, the way he stared too long, the way the air felt wrong around him. She trusted me. And she was right to. He was caught installing a hidden camera in the girls' locker room. That day changed everything because that teacher introduced me to his Aunt Evelyn, a consultant with a mind sharper than any blade. Evelyn didn't flinch when I told her about my intuition. She didn't call me dramatic or broken. She said, "Your mind sees shadows other people pretend aren't there. That's not a flaw, Madison. That's leverage." Under her guidance, I learned how to read patterns, how to dissect people's motives, how to see the business world the way some people see equations. By college, I was quietly helping companies recover from disaster. But at home, I was just the girl in socks and a laptop, the one who paid a portion of the household bills while everyone still insisted she did nothing. Meanwhile, Brooke lived like the world was soft and padded just for her. Promotions, compliments, praise, everything flowed her way like it was pre-ordered. When she announced her engagement to Lucas, the room lit up like someone had plugged my parents into an outlet. I felt something cold slide down my spine the moment I shook his hand, a warning. But when I tried to gently tell Brooke to slow down, she laughed like I was a minor inconvenience in her otherwise perfect orbit. And that was the beginning of everything that would eventually lead to that ballroom, that table with no water, and the sentence that sliced through me like glass. I wish I could tell you I was surprised by what came next, by the way things shifted after Brooke announced her engagement. But the truth is, the undercurrent had been there long before the ring. It showed up in small moments, the kind you almost miss if you're not paying attention. But I always pay attention. It's the one thing I've never been able to turn off. Lucas entered our family like someone stepping onto a stage he already believed he owned. He shook hands too firmly, smiled too widely, and spoke in polished phrases that sounded memorized. Most people saw confidence. I saw something hollow, like a drum stretched too tight. When he looked at Brooke, the warmth in his expression didn't quite reach his eyes. And when he looked at me, he didn't look long at all, like I was a detail he didn't want to acknowledge. At the engagement dinner, I caught him scanning the room the way men scan price tags. Brooke clung to his arm, laughing too loudly at jokes he barely finished. My parents watched them like they were witnessing royalty. The whole night had that glossy, too perfect sheen that always makes my instincts flare. I tried to ignore it until the moment Lucas pulled Brooke aside near the kitchen door. They whispered sharply, Brooke pretending to smile, Lucas gripping her arm a little too tightly. When they walked back, Brooke's lipstick was smudged at the edge and Lucas's jaw looked clenched. Nobody else noticed. They never noticed the cracks until the whole thing breaks. 2 days later, the group email went out. It was supposedly a wedding reminder, but anyone with a pulse could read the real message. Limited seating, no +1s unless approved in advance. Please be mindful, no freeloaders. It didn't even pretend to be subtle. And because I was the only one attending alone, everyone knew exactly who the line was for. I stared at the screen for a long moment, then closed my laptop. No reply, no reaction. That always throws people off when the quiet one doesn't take the bait. My mother, however, couldn't leave it alone. "You won't cause issues at the wedding, right?" she asked over dinner a few nights later, not looking at me spooning potatoes onto Brooke's plate instead. "What kind of issues?" I asked. "You know how you get," she murmured, waving her hand like she was dismissing a fly. "How I get," as if sensing danger were a flaw, as if being right too many times made people uncomfortable. Then came the fitting appointment. Brooke wanted family bonding, which was her code for an audience. She twirled in a mermaid gown while Mom teared up, and I stood off to the side holding a box of abandoned pins. Lucas arrived halfway through, checked the price tag on the dress before kissing Brooke's forehead. My father laughed, thinking it was harmless. I saw the calculation in his eyes. When Brooke asked me what I thought of the dress, I told her the truth. "It's beautiful," I said. She narrowed her eyes. "You said that too fast. There are moments you can feel the ground shifting beneath you, warning you that something bigger is coming. This was one of them." By the week of the wedding, the energy in the house was thick enough to choke on. Mom barked orders, Dad double-checked seating charts he didn't create, and Brooke floated through it all like a glitter-covered storm. Every time Lucas opened his mouth, my skin crawled. Every time Brooke brushed me off, something inside me coiled tighter. The morning we left for the venue in Savannah, I felt that same cold sensation I'd felt when I first met Lucas, like someone had left a window open in my ribcage. But I said nothing. I watched the highway roll past, watched Brooke scroll through messages, watched my parents pretend everything was perfect. They didn't know it yet, but the story they'd built, the golden daughter, the silent sister, the perfect match, was already starting to crack. And none of them were ready for what those cracks would expose. The wedding venue sat on a stretch of coastal hotel property outside Savannah, the kind of place that exists mainly for photo albums, white stone glass railings, rose arrangements that smelled expensive. People kept saying the weather was perfect, but to me the air felt too still, like the moment before a storm hits. I arrived earlier than the rest of my family, partly because I wanted to avoid the chaos, partly because I needed a moment alone. The lobby was buzzing with guests in pastel dresses and tailored suits, everyone talking about Brooke like she was the main character in their weekend. They barely glanced at me, and honestly, I preferred it that way. When my parents walked in, they gave me a quick nod before rushing to help Brooke with last-minute touches. I stayed back, leaning against a cool marble pillar, as Brooke swept through the lobby with Lucas behind her. She looked stunning, not just in the physical sense, but in the way someone looks when the entire world has convinced them they're untouchable. Lucas glanced at me once, and for a split second, our eyes locked. The expression on his face wasn't annoyance. It wasn't smugness either. It was awareness, like he recognized me as a threat he didn't understand. He immediately looked away. I should have said something. I should have warned Brooke again. But what do you tell someone who's already decided she doesn't need you? At the rehearsal, walkthrough, the first real cracks showed. Brooke snapped at a coordinator because the aisle candles weren't symmetrical enough. Lucas blamed a groomsman for messing up timing when he was the one who entered late. My parents stood by them, both smiling thinly, too, invested in the image to see the reality wobbling under their feet. While everyone rehearsed, I wandered toward the reception hall. Most of the tables were already set gold plates, crystal glasses, towering centerpieces. It was beautiful in a way that almost made me forget the tension humming beneath everything. Then I found my assigned table. It was near the back, against a wall, practically hiding behind a pillar. No centerpiece, no water, no place card, just an empty setup that felt less like a mistake and more like intention. I stood there for a long moment, absorbing it. The hum of conversation from the main tables, the faint salt in the air from the ocean outside. The realization settling in my chest this wasn't an oversight. This was preparation for humiliation. Later, when I asked a passing server about it, she hesitated before saying, "I was told this one is self-managed." She rushed off before I could respond, leaving her words hanging like dust in the air. Self-managed, in a ballroom filled with catered luxury. Only my table. That evening, back in my hotel room, I sat on the edge of the bed staring at the navy dress I had laid out for the ceremony. I'd chosen it because it made me feel calm, grounded like myself. But in that moment, I realized it was also armor, not flashy, not for show, just steady enough to remind me I wasn't as breakable as my family thought. I could feel the unraveling, the subtle slips, the tension tightening like a pulled thread. And I knew, without fully knowing why, that tomorrow wasn't going to be the fairy tale Brooke imagined. She was pushing someone too far, and when you keep pulling a thread, eventually, the entire dress comes apart. The morning of the wedding tasted like salt and nerves. Even the air felt heavier, as if the coastline itself sensed what was coming. I slipped into my navy dress, smoothing the fabric over my ribs. It felt like a second skin, quiet, steady, utterly, unlike the glittering spectacle the day demanded from everyone else. When I stepped out of my hotel room, everything smelled like perfume and pressure. Guests glided through the hallways toward the ceremony, their voices lifted in polite excitement. I walked among them like a ghost, visible but unnoticed. The violin music floated through the corridor as I approached the entrance to the ballroom. Elegant, soft, completely at odds with the tension knotted behind my sternum. Inside the room shimmered, light scattered across the polished floor, catching the sequins on dresses and the gold accents on the tables. Brooke stood near the front, surrounded by bridesmaids, her veil fanned out behind her like she was posing for a magazine cover. She didn't notice me at first. Why would she? I'd been a background character in her life for years. I made my way to my assigned table, the same one from rehearsal, still shoved against the wall, still without water silverware or a place card. Only this time, the other tables were now fully set, wine-poured bread baskets, steaming servers moving smoothly from group to group. Not mine. When I caught the eye of a server walking past, she froze like she'd been caught doing something wrong. "Excuse me," I said quietly. "Is there a delay with this table?" She glanced at her chart, then back at me, guilt rising in her cheeks. I was told this one is self-managed." The words dropped like stones. In a catered ballroom, I asked. She swallowed. "I'm really sorry." And then she hurried away. The humiliation wasn't surprising. What surprised me was how unsurprising it felt, like I'd been bracing for this moment my whole life. I sat down anyway. The ceremony itself was a blur of white fabric vows that sounded like carefully curated Instagram captions, and Brooke smiling like she'd won something. Lucas stood beside her in a suit that felt like a costume's sharp lines hiding a hollow core. When they kissed and the room erupted in applause, I clapped too. Not out of joy, but out of resignation. This was the world they wanted, the image they'd built, and I had never belonged in it. After the ceremony, guests flowed into the reception hall. Laughter, champagne glasses clinking, plates full of food I hadn't been offered. I stayed seated silent, the cool wall at my back. That was when Brooke saw me. She detached herself from a cluster of bridesmaids and walked over, dress, swishing, perfume hitting, before her words did. She leaned down, her smile so syrupy sweet it made my teeth ache. "Waste good food on you. That's cute." Her voice wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. The people closest to us heard it. The ones further away felt the shift, heads turning, whispers catching like sparks. I blinked at her, stunned, even though I'd prepared myself for something. Just not this level of precision, this level of cruelty. She tilted her head. "You can just leave the gift and go home." Home. A place where I was needed when bills were due, but forgotten at every celebration. I felt every eye on me. The sting wasn't from her words. It was from seeing my parents standing just a few feet away, watching, doing nothing. My mother looked at her flowers. My father took a sip of wine, then muttered, "Well, maybe she should go." And that was it. The moment the last thread snapped, I stood slowly. The room seemed to expand and contract around me like a lung struggling for breath. My napkin slipped off my lap and onto the floor, landing with a soft whisper. "All right," I said, forcing a small smile. "I'll go." Brooke smirked. Victory. But I wasn't finished. I looked at her, really looked at her, and added, "But just know this, you'll all regret it." The air shifted. Someone at the main table dropped a fork. A bridesmaid sucked in a breath. Brooke blinked confusion slicing through her smugness. Before she could respond, a chair scraped loudly near the front. A tall man in a slate-gray suit stood Grant, Lucas's older brother. I hadn't seen him all morning. "I care," he said, his voice cutting through the ballroom like steel wrapped in calm, "and you should listen to her." Every head turned. Brooke scoffed. "I'm sorry, who are you?" Grant, he replied. "Lucas's brother." Lucas stiffened beside her. Grant continued, "I've kept quiet because I didn't want to ruin your day. But Harper's right. Harper." He'd gotten my name wrong, but no one even noticed. They were too focused on him. "You will regret this," he said evenly. "All of it." The room fell into a deeper silence. Then Grant turned to the crowd. "Since everyone here loves appearances so much, let's rip off the last one. Lucas isn't an heir to anything. Our father's company filed for bankruptcy 6 months ago. He's been unemployed since." Gasp shot across the room. Brooke whipped toward Lucas. "What? Tell me he's lying!" Lucas's jaw flexed. "I never said I was unemployed. You implied you were taking over," she whispered, voice cracking. "I didn't tell you to sign anything," he muttered. And then it all tumbled out. The condo lease in her name, the fake timelines, the sudden wedding, the fabricated stability. Brooke's face went pale beneath her makeup. My parents stood frozen. Linda's hand trembled on her necklace. Charles muttered a curse under his breath, suddenly aware the golden image he worshipped was collapsing. But the meltdown wasn't done. Another voice rose from a table near the front. Firm, older. Enough. Mr. Dalton stood impeccably dressed, silver hair reflecting the chandelier light. Brooke's eyes widened. "Mr. Dalton." He ignored her. He pointed to me. "I came here out of respect," he said. "Not for you, for her." A ripple tore through the room. "Harper." He paused, corrected himself. "Madison saved my company 6 months ago. Quietly, efficiently, brilliantly. You all enjoy the stability. Thank her." Brooke's jaw dropped. My parents stared at me like they'd never seen me before. Mr. Dalton continued, "She doesn't need a spotlight or your approval. She just needed to be heard." Brooke swayed, almost missing a step in her heels. Whispers erupted, questions, shock, regret. A guest near the gift table asked loudly, "Are refunds allowed?" Someone else whispered. "Did they really not serve her food?" Another murmured. Brooks finished. And I inhaled. Deep, slow. For the first time all day, the air didn't choke me. Grant moved closer, placing a steady hand on my shoulder. "Let's go," he said softly. "This place is sinking." I nodded. We walked out together past the fallen glitter of Brooke's perfect dream, past my parents' stunned silence, past the wreckage unraveling behind us. When the ballroom doors closed, the ocean breeze hit my face, not cold but clean, like starting over. Behind us, the wedding was burning. Ahead of me, something else was opening, something that finally felt like mine. The fallout hit faster than any of us expected. By Monday morning, clips from the wedding were circulating online, shaky phone videos of Brooke's meltdown, Grant's calm revelation, Mr. Dalton calling my name in front of 200 stunned guests. People love a polished disaster, and this one practically gift-wrapped itself for the internet. Lucas disappeared blocked. Brooke blocked Grant, blocked half the wedding party. He slipped out of the city before anyone could demand answers. The condo, Brooke signed for non-refundable. Payments stacked up like quicksand. Then the ripple spread to my parents. Without the money, I'd quietly been covering utilities repairs, even some of their overdue bills, their perfect facade cracked wide open. They rented out the guest room. Charles picked up part-time work. Linda started selling antiques online, pretending it was a hobby. They didn't call to apologize. They only called to ask if I could help Brooke through a hard time. I didn't take the call. Meanwhile, my world finally expanded instead of shrinking. I moved into a small apartment in downtown Charleston. Nothing fancy, but full of light with space for my notebooks and late-night strategy sessions. After the wedding fiasco went viral, in business circles, clients reached out nonstop. Mr. Dalton introduced me to 2 CEOs. Evelyn nearly cried when she saw my calendar filling up. For the first time, I wasn't surviving my life. I was living it. And the strange part, I didn't miss any of them. By early spring, the noise around the wedding finally settled, leaving only the pieces everyone had to live with. Brooke was one of the first to crack through the silence. She showed up at my apartment one Friday afternoon, no heels, no designer bag, just a tired girl with swollen eyes and a voice that barely held itself together. "I don't need money," she said. "I just don't know where else to go." For a moment, I saw the sister I used to imagine having. Not the one who mocked me in a ballroom, not the one who believed Lucas over logic, just someone who'd finally fallen far enough to see the ground I'd lived on all my life. I let her in on rules, no lies, no insults, no excuses. She nodded grateful in a way I'd never seen. Grant kept in touch too. Soft check-ins, no pressure, a quiet steadiness that felt new but safe. Maybe something would grow there, maybe not. For once, I didn't feel rushed to define it. Standing by my window one night, watching the city lights flicker, I realized something simple and sharp. Being the quiet one never made me weak. It only made people underestimate the moment I finally chose myself. If you've ever been the overlooked one, the underestimated one, share your story in the comments. And if you want more stories like this, hit subscribe so you don't miss what comes next.